Welcome to the Driven Agenda podcast, where raw journeys drive ambition and reveal the fuel behind people's success. I'm Shannon Sagan, a personal injury lawyer, entrepreneur, and founder of the Dashcam Lawyer. This podcast is all about being driven, focused, motivated, and determined to reach your goals and setting an agenda that pushes you forward. We bring you insights from top players in business, sports, real estate, investing, health, and more. Here, we dive into what it really takes to thrive with candid conversations that cut through the noise and get to the heart of people's success. Okay, we are live. Who do we have today? My friend Mike Ivancevic. For those of you saying, who is Mike Ivancevic? He is a friend of mine. I realized today we've been friends for, I think, right around 20 years now.
I was driving here thinking the same thing, and I was actually talking to somebody, and I was like, man, I think I've been friends with this guy for 20 plus years.
Isn't it crazy how quick time flies? I met Mike when I was in law school. Somehow I got into playing paintball. Huge adrenaline rush. Me and a buddy of mine from law school, we met up with some other guys, and almost every weekend at some point we would play. And I knew Mike's brother, not well, Chris, but all my friends knew him, but I didn't really know him well. But somehow I hooked up with you. You had a paintball field, you had a paintball store, and you were actually a professional player and played all around the country, right?
Yeah, country, around the world. We traveled overseas a few times, but mainly in the United States, everywhere. And I was opening up a shop and doing construction, and I got a phone call that you were looking for some equipment. So ironically, you might have been my first sale.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking back to where there was a time where right when I'd only known you for maybe a year, and I barely knew your parents, but they let me, remember the time where you had to travel and they let me run the shop? And I'm like, why is it maybe because I was a lawyer or something that they trusted me, but
for some reason
I ran your shop and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to ring anything up, but I thought that was hilarious. But good old days. So yeah, Mike had one of the top paintball stores back in the day and field. And then one day I remember him telling me I'm getting into real estate. And, me selfishly, I'm thinking, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Why? But, as you'll find out in the interview, it was definitely the great decision to make. Another thing about Mike is he's probably one of the I don't know, want to say famous, or as far as fishing goes, saltwater fishing, he has done more than most people. Talk about that.
Yeah, so it's kind of ironic. At 2008, everything got slow, and me and my brother had this boat, and I was like, I got time on my hands. Let's go fishing. So we got really into fishing, and I had played so much paintball, and I realized at this point in my life that I need something competitive, whether it's, paintball, sports, fishing, golf, and I've shot a little bit. So I realized that I have this need in my life, and fishing kind of fulfilled that. So I was fishing a bunch, and I was learning, and it was exciting, and it was new. And then one of my buddies that owns a business down in Boynton Beach is like, hey, I need an extra guy to fish a tournament. And I was like, right in. This is right up my line, being competitive. And I did that from that point on, maybe, 15 years of hardcore fishing all over the world, and got really competitive, won a lot of tournaments, and had a lot of fun with it, met a lot of people. And that's actually kind of transitioned into some of my real estate deals as well. Some of the guys I met on the docks fishing, but I loved it. Especially bill fishing and the thrill of seeing these big, strong beasts behind the boat, 15, 20 feet, eating the bait behind the boat. It's pretty exhilarating. You realize that you become very small when you realize how much power they have. Yeah.
I think you told me you were part of like one of the biggest fishing competitions in the world.
So we fished in Costa Rica a bunch. It was the Los Sueños Triple Crown. That was probably one of the most competitive. I fished the White Marlin Open up in Maryland, which is by far the biggest. Tons and tons of money, tons and tons of boats. I think they got like 400 plus boats. Really, really cool, exciting event. There's a lot of celebrities. Michael Jordan's now the real famous guy that's fishing there a bunch. I fished his first year. I fished it, and it was definitely a lot of excitement with that.
That's cool. I can only do the golf. I get seasick. Last time I ever went fishing was with my stepfather, like 15 plus years ago. Just threw up everywhere, and I don't know. I am such a puss, but I can't do it. But I can do it in the golf. So when I visited my sister in the Keys, we'd go down there.
Yeah.
Something's better than nothing, I guess.
Something's better than
I
nothing.
love it. It's fun. I don't know why I get sick.
It happens. You got to condition yourself a little bit. I'm not prone to not getting sick, and the night before, depending on what you're doing.
That's probably
has a lot to do with it.
So, in addition to being a professional paintball player, in addition to fishing some of the biggest tournaments in the world, Mike's family also owns a very well-known party rental company, Regency Party Rental. So let me ask you this. You have what I consider the successful business in the paintball, between that and the field. And then I know you were wrapping up doing professional. And then your family has this Regency, which I'm sure you could have taken part. Why do we decide to kind of go our own route into real estate?
It's not quite my own route. My father, as you know, invested in real estate. So I wasn't in love with the party rental business. And it just wasn't a passion of mine. So my dad said, hey, real estate's another passion of mine, probably a bigger passion than this business. Why don't you get into real estate? And I wasn't quite sure about that. And it took a couple years of convincing. And as I learned more about what he was doing with real estate, it kind of started making a lot of sense. There was a lot of times where growing up and I started having kids, and I was like, oh, Dad, I need this college fund. And he's like, you're crazy. I'm like, why? You got to prepare for your kids. And he's like, you see that building across the street? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I bought that when you were born. It's paid off. And he's like, have you ever asked for money in college? And I was like, no. He's like, that's the best college fund you've ever seen. And he's like, it's even better is when it's done, then it's my retirement fund. It's a piece of real estate that will keep paying and paying dividends. And it kind of started clicking for me a little bit. And I was like, all right, well, maybe let's get into real estate. I wish I would have been a little bit more of a real estate investor like my father. Instead, I'm selling high-end luxury real estate on the water in northern Palm Beach County, and it's a grind. And I wish I owned more real estate. And maybe that's kind of the next chapter we'll get into.
Well, I know your parents are very, very savvy entrepreneurs. The Regency, that warehouse, is it still in that same spot?
Yeah.
It is a massive facility. I don't know how many.
Yeah, the building is 101,000 square feet. Regency occupies about 75,000 square feet of it. The business has been around for over 40 years. My brother runs it. My mom still goes in occasionally. My dad, I think, is officially retired. I think we have family meetings at his house, but he's not going in very much anymore. And it's a wildly successful company. That's another grind. It's a hard business, but my brother does a really good job at it.
So that entrepreneurship's in your blood, and your father's from what country?
Montenegro.
So he's got that immigrant mentality where he came here and just absolutely hustled, crushed it. And I don't know anyone else in my life who owns more real estate in this county than your father. And he just started that a long time ago. And he's got buildings, I think, that are still just sitting, right?
Some, yeah, maybe right up front. He's accumulated a pretty good portfolio, and I always say that people are like, "Why do you work so hard?" I'm like, "I'm the son of an immigrant." Immigrants have a little bit different mentality. They come to this country with nothing, and they don't have any sort of backbone or support from a family. They're literally the pioneers of their family, right? They come here and they make it happen.
They figure it out.
They figure it out. And that's, I kind of have that mentality daily, with work, right? What are we going to do? Let's figure it out. And we push hard. And if there's something we want to accomplish, it's kind of like that immigrant mentality. Let's figure it out and get it done. So I actually think it's a blessing for me. It was a hard road for him. And thank God he did it, because he's been pretty successful. And,
but I think your parents were pretty strict too, weren't they? Were they pretty strict with you guys? Business lessons and stuff like that?
Business lessons. I mean, I've got stories I always tell. I seem to tell the same story whenever we do these podcasts. I'm driving down the road, probably right out front on Congress Avenue. My dad's got the AM radio, listening to the news, and he would just tell me, he's like, son, that building's $200,000. That one's $250,000. This so-and-so just bought this one. And I'm like, what is this guy? I'm like 10 years old, 12 years old. I'm like, what is this guy talking to me about? I'm like, this AM radio station's killing my head. And it was always just life lessons nonstop. And I find myself doing that with my kids now. But I would say the strictness was more of out of desperation for help. Whereas, we had to work as kids. And it wasn't because my parents were strict, it's because no one else would work. So, when probably what I didn't love about the party rental business was a lot of parties at country clubs on Friday nights.
Right.
Well, what happens on Saturday morning at a country club? Breakfast. So when that party ends at midnight, guess who's there?
Yeah.
Me, my mom, my dad, my brother, maybe one good employee that's willing to show up. And we tear the party down. We work till 3 or 4 in the morning. And that's just how we grew up. And maybe that side of the business growing up was what I didn't love about it. There was no 9 to 5, right? There was 24/7, whatever needed to be done. My dad will tell you stories about sleeping at the warehouse on New Year's Eve, right? Same thing. New Year's Eve is done. We got to tear all these parties down. There's more parties going on New Year's back in the 90s at all these country clubs. We worked hard.
Yeah.
Worked hard. I didn't see snow till I was 21. Why? Because it was season here and we're setting up parties.
Yep.
So.
So basically, Mike said a little bit, but I brought him in here because he's a realtor. And yes, just like us injury lawyers, there's way too many realtors.
Yeah.
But Mike has taken real estate to a whole another level. He is in the high-end luxury real estate. And that's why I wanted to bring him in on the podcast, because we talk about entrepreneurship. And we talk about the people I've talked to are people doing things that are completely different than your regular 9 to 5. And that's why I'm not talking to lawyers. I'm not talking to other industries. How do you get into, first you started off, I know you partnered with another mutual friend of ours. How do you transition from, let's say, regular real estate, so to speak, to this ultra high luxury real estate?
So I started my real estate career, 15, 16 years ago. I worked at a RE/MAX for 12 months. There was a lady down in Boca. I said, hey, I'm going to give you 12 months. She says, I'm going to teach you the nuts and bolts of real estate, the contracts, the forms. And I commuted down to Boca 2-3 days a week to learn. I think on day 365, I went to Illustrated, worked there for 2.5 years. And then a good, like I said, good buddy of mine said, hey, I'm opening up shop. We opened up shop down the street in one of my dad's, 400 square feet spaces. That. And we went for it. So I learned a lot doing that. But I would say, the answer to the question, how do you get into the high end real estate? I had a real estate coach, and he wasn't necessarily selling high end real estate. He was selling high end real estate compared to what we were doing, but he was in a high end area. And what I ended up realizing, that he was actually selling the lower end of the high end area. And he said something to me that frustrated me that day, but he was 100% spot on. And he's like, you just got to want it. And I was like, dude, there's got to be a secret. What's the tool? Give me the mojo. He's like, no. He's like, you got to want to sell high-end real estate. And I talk to realtors all the time. People ask me this question: how do you do this? How do you do this? And a lot of times I'm like, hey, what are you selling? Oh, well, I sell this one neighborhood. It's, let's just use round numbers, $500,000 neighborhood because no one else is marketing there and it's easy and I think I can get listings. I'm like, okay, that's one way to look at it. But I'm going to take the same effort. I'm going to market to $10 million homes. I'm going to make sure everything's classy and on point and look good. And what if I get one? You might get 2 or 3 homes, right? So that's, three $500,000 places is 1.5 million. I get one at 10 million. And now what if I double end that deal? Right? Now we're talking $20 million of real estate off one transaction. So everything I do day in, day out is to go after high-end real estate. I'm networking with high-end people. I'm advertising to high-end people. And one of the things that I've realized that to become the guy who gets that business, you have to be trusted by them, and you also have to be almost one of them. So you have to think like them. You have to almost live like them. Your whole outlook has to be what they're doing. So when I'm sitting in a room, I don't feel uncomfortable because we're talking about the same things. We're talking about the same investments. We're talking about the same trips. We're talking about the same boats. We're talking about the same restaurants. I've experienced those things and I can relate to them. And I don't want realtors to go out and hang out at the most expensive restaurants trying to solicit business, but you do have to give yourself that little bit of pleasure and understand what it is. So when you are in the situation, you understand what they're talking about. The other thing that you have to do is you have to know every ounce of information in that high end arena of real estate that there is to know, because you're being hired for what you know. You get all these guys that have bought and sold $10 million homes. They probably have done 20 real estate transactions. They know it better than your average realtor. They have high profile attorneys that are watching over everything. What they don't know is the information that you have, the insider knowledge. Why did that house trade for what it traded for? What was going on with it? Was it remodeled? Was it not remodeled? I spend a lot of time at brokers opens for the right ones. I get invited, to probably 20 a week, and I go to one or two. But I go to the one or two of the highest, nicest homes in the area. Why? Because I want to know about the property. I want to network the realtor. I want to ask the realtor questions. I want to if I'm not going to sell the property, I want to know everything about it so I can sell the one down the street. So having that ultra competitive edge of local market knowledge and my knowledge people laugh, my knowledge goes right down to 3 zip codes. Really don't care what happens outside those zip codes.
So you've ultra niched, so to speak, all the way down to, and it's what, Jupiter?
Yeah, northern Palm Beach County on the water.
Okay.
Yep. So,
and you are a broker as well.
Yeah, real estate broker.
And that's because you have your own office. You work under Illustrated, right? But you have your own.
Yeah.
Branch.
So I work under Illustrated Properties, and I am the title. It's managing broker of the Jupiter East office. It's my office. It's kind of turned into like my little playground of an office, private little oasis. We have 17 agents that work underneath me that I'm giving advice to. And no, I don't want any more agents. I like where I'm at. I get asked
more humans is more problems.
Yeah. It's there's the brokerage business is a funny one. There's absolutely no money to be made in it. So
because of all the negotiating that the realtors do and
splits
stuff.
are high, expenses are high. It's kind of I think it's a dying business, but it's God bless all the brokers that are still doing it. I'm not envious of their position.
Yeah.
I think that the guys that really do well in this business sell, and you just have to sell at a high level. And another reason I wanted to sell high-end real estate, not because, it is glamorous. It is fun. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of money laid out on all these listings, but I always have goals. So say you want to sell $100 million real estate. If you're selling 500,000 homes, that's a lot of transactions, right? That's a lot of headaches in my mind. If you can do it in 15 houses, it's a lot simpler lifestyle.
Quality over quantity makes sense.
Yeah.
I try to do the same thing in my injury business. Obviously, I'd love to have fewer cases that are higher value, but it's so competitive that how do you, sometimes how can you do that?
For me, lately, and it's a little, I get a little worried but the market is doing that for me. I'm getting less and less phone calls for the lower end stuff, and I'm getting more and more in the higher end. So it's happening naturally. I worked really hard for it. And you're like, hey, I'll sell your $500,000 house. I will. I'll sell anything. But those phone calls come in less and less.
Right. Well, you're making a name for yourself. You're out on social media. You've got some pretty high-end videographers. Your
Yeah.
marketing is definitely on point, and you spend a lot of money. Can you talk about a little bit about your marketing?
Yeah. I got to tell you, I actually think I'm marketing first, then a realtor. We do so much marketing. So anything from high-end brokers opens and with these brokers open parties that we host, I'll spend $10,000 in an evening. And a lot of people are like, is that worth it? I get that phone call. Oh my God, was that worth it? I'm like, yeah, well, I actually think it is. I think it's worth every penny we spend on them. The videography, we'll video a house, a high-end home 4 times, once pre-listing, brokers open, one in the middle just with a different videographer just to get a different concept, and maybe one as it closes, and potentially even more. So we do a lot of new construction. We'll videography the construction process. So some of these homes actually get, I think about it, probably like 7 or 8 videos. But the market with socials really seems to gravitate towards the high end videography, and it's pretty wild. I'll be walking around and like, "You're Mike," and I'm like, "Yeah, how you doing?" And they're like, "Oh, I saw you on Instagram yesterday," and I'm like, "Oh, that's great," And it's just a snowball effect. The videography really is it's a powerful tool, but I'm very when it comes to marketing, I am so particular. If it's not first class or high end, we're not doing it.
Yeah, I can tell you. I know you had introduced me to the Studio 910
Yeah,
guys, and I think they've all kind of broken off, and they're all doing their thing.
yeah,
I don't know who you're still using, but I can tell all the videos that you're doing for your homes are definitely super high end, high quality.
yeah.
Just
We use Studio 910 a lot. A lot whenever when we have something worthy of it, we definitely use them. We use a couple other guys, get some different again perspectives.
yep.
Um, we use videos in different ways. Some are strictly socials, and some are email campaigns. We do a ton of email campaigns. We do 3 to 5 email campaigns a week. We do mailers. Mailers I actually probably like the least, but we do.
Why the return, or just the amount of work, or
I
both?
think the return. It just doesn't. I mean, yeah, it's just not that great for me.
Yeah.
I know some realtors that love it. They're sending out 10, 20,000 pieces a month, and they see the return, and they're absolutely loving it. I'm not loving it.
Yeah.
We just do it to do it.
Is there a particular secret sauce that you have in your marketing?
No,
Okay.
it's all out there,
All right.
right? Everyone sees it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the funny part when everyone's like, "Oh, what's your secret?" I'm like, "You follow me, right? Right? You see
Yeah.
it all."
Just whatever you're doing, you're making sure you're not worried necessarily about the money aspect. It needs to be top quality, whether it's the videos, the emails,
Yeah.
the mail outs.
I don't ever. I mean, people are like, "What's your budget?" I don't have a budget. I try not to look, and we look every year at the end of the year with the accountant.
Yeah.
I mean, we're upwards 150 plus thousand a year.
I mean, listen, you said you're a marketer over a realtor, and I have switched to that title about a year ago. The lawyers getting the injury cases are the best marketers.
Correct.
It doesn't matter anymore. There's statistics that show people don't care about looking up how good their lawyer is or trial experience or any of that. It's really who can help me the quickest and how can I find that person.
Right.
And so I've actually spent a lot of time just marketing and networking, and that's mostly all that I'm doing right now. I've got 1 or 2 trial lawyers that I'll work with, and that's kind of their thing. They're not marketers, they're not breadwinners, and I let them do the trials, and I'm just out there doing all the networking. I think a lot of businesses are heading in that direction. Mine and yours are very competitive, and I think a lot of people are not taking budgets, marketing budgets, and looking at it that way. They're looking at it as wasting money, so to
Right.
speak, when it really needs to be an investment.
So one of the harshest realities I ever had in my life was 2008. Things got slow. I cut all marketing out of the paintball business. I was like, there's only 2 stores in town, right? Why do I need to market? This is crazy. They're gonna find me. Well, business slid, and it honestly never recovered. We had a very successful store. Things were great, but I always feel like, and I look back, we could have been so much bigger if I never pulled back the marketing. So whenever things get tough, I double down.
I was going to say every decent business coach, because I've coached a business coach too, no matter who it is. I've used a few. I've been on the same one for a while now, and every business coach, every successful company will tell you, just like when the stock market's down, you
Right.
buy the dip. Just like when your business is going down, the industry is going down, then you invest even more into
Yeah.
marketing. And it's very hard for some people to understand. And sometimes I still fall into that trap, but that's when you've got to really spend even more money when things are down and it doesn't look
Yeah.
like it's going to recover.
When when we were going through actual quarantine of COVID, we were deemed, necessity business, right? People needed us. They needed to buy houses and live. So I remember sitting in the office and I had 2 listings. One was a $400,000 house in Tequesta, and one was a $3.9 million home in North Palm Beach on the water. And I got a lot of phone calls. What is going on? I'm like, people are supposed to be hiding in their houses, right? We're supposed to be quarantining. And I saw an opportunity that New York City was a mass exodus. I was getting phone calls from people in New York City trapped in their apartments. I had parents buying $400,000 homes in Tequesta like there was like candy. They were like, we need to get our kid out of,
Right.
and they all had 400 grand cash in Northern Palm Beach County. They just need to get their kid out of New York City. The experiment of their kid making New York was over. And the other phone calls I got were executives flying down on their private jets saying, get me the hell out of this city. So I went and I don't even, you say I tripled the budget. I went all in on socials in New York City, hard. And people are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, these people are stuck in their house. What do you think they're doing? They're getting on Facebook, they're getting on Instagram, and they're looking, how the hell can I get out of this place? And I went very, very hard on socials in New York City, and I think it really kind of took off from there. I do remember having a phone conversation with a good realtor buddy of mine. He was in the other illustrated office in Jupiter, and I call him up and I say, his name's Andy, and I go, Andy, what are you doing? He's like, I'm in the office. I'm like, so am I. And I go, I think it's going to explode. And this is, I think, April or something, right? We're all still, kids are out in school. And he goes, I think you're right. Sure enough, May started coming around. I think they started letting travel out a little bit, and it was just an onslaught. And it's now I talk to people, I golf a little bit to get my competitive edge. I don't fish as much. And I'm meeting so many people like, yeah, I moved here 5 years ago. And it's so funny how that crowd who moved here 5 years ago from wherever they came from in the country, they bought or they rented, they settled in, and now they're rebuying. And there's so many people that are moving around. I always laugh. People are like, "Oh, well, there's so many people that out there," and I'm like, in Northern Palm Beach County, it's probably about 500 buyers that keep just circulating homes. They find out like, "Oh, well, I really should have been down the street at this better location," and they have the means,
Yeah, once they get in and realize the area
right?
and get to know, then
It,
they get to the spot that they really want. So
right.
it's actually double business sometimes for realtors.
Correct. In the higher end sector. So the higher end market is really strong right now. If you want to call the real estate market strong, that market seems to be moving. The lower end market is definitely slow. And I call Northern Palm Beach County lower end market 1.5 and below. And the higher end market, let's call that 5 and above. There's a middle market that I will kind of just is a very interesting spot. I think your entrepreneurs are 20% down. That's a struggle with these interest rates. But the 5 million and on up to whatever, 50 million, those are cash buyers and
Yeah, that's a
they're ready to
whole
go.
yeah, no, that's kind
Nothing's
of going to
nothing's slowing
continue.
them down. And they see the opportunity.
Right.
I mean, they're looking at our real estate and they're still saying it's cheap. Where I'm saying I just broke a record. And they're like, yeah, I got a deal.
Yeah.
So it's wild. A little bit different.
Your first $1 million ish sale, how did that feel?
It was my first transaction.
Oh, really?
Look at that.
Look at you.
Look at that. It was 1.5 million and my very first transaction, and it felt great. I will say, one of the I did one that was like 3.5, 4 million, and it was coming right out of COVID. 3.5, 4 million back then was a big deal, and that was like a defining point. I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. Actually, in 2015, I did a couple 2.5 and 3.5 in the same month, and I actually took that money and bought the office. So I didn't like just go buy a new car, and
Yeah.
so I was like, all right, well, we're gonna do something here with this money. And we opened the office. Those were really cool defining moments in my career. We sold some good property. And then now it seems 10 million was like the threshold that I really wanted to achieve. We did that. And last week we sold a $15 million property.
Congrats. Holy shit.
Yeah, that was really
That
kind
was
of
that one is that the one you've been marketing from the ground up?
yes.
That build?
Yep.
Man, what a gorgeous, I kept DMing you saying, one day. And then I'm like, nah, just kidding.
Yeah, that was a really special one. We went out on a limb. These properties came up. They were expensive at the time. They came up for like $4 million for the dirt. I call it for the dirt. There were houses down there that were really unlivable. I didn't even want to walk through them. They were so bad. And we ended up paying about 5 million. All four of them went on. Investors were clawing all over them. They ended up going for 5 million, which at the time I would say was we overpaid. We were very nervous. I work with a spec home builder, and I remember it's pretty funny. We were sitting on the property. We hugged it out. We bought two of the four. We spent $10 million. And he goes, "You better not mess up, Mikey." And I was like, "I got you. I got you, buddy. No pressure." Right. So we developed these properties, the two of the four. And we sold each of them for about $15 million. And it's funny, we ended up last week with a hug at Food Shack. And he said, "We did it, Mikey." So on to the next one. We spent a little bit more money on the next lot that closes next week, but we're on to bigger and better things. But it's pretty wild that how it all works, and it's a long sales cycle.
Yeah, I feel like it was long because I've seen your posts from a while ago. But
right. So I think we bought those in 22 of June, and the one we just sold last week, we actually took 6 months designing it. Me and the spec home builder team, and sat down at my office, and we went and just kept drawing, and send it back to the draftsman for revisions. And we just kept 6 months later, we come out with this house, and we're like, let's go, let's do it. And I had a little bit of vision for the house based upon what I talked to with other clients that looked at the house next door that said, hey, this house actually didn't have enough garage space. And I was like, and one of them, the lady actually, I won't forget her. She goes, "Come back to my house. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about." So she looked at this house that I had for 15 million, not enough garages, didn't like it, brought me back to her house. And I noticed that she had 6-car garage and wasn't big enough. And I noticed in one garage, it was the Rolls Royce SUV. It was a 488 Ferrari.
My dream garage.
A 1967 fastback Mustang. I mean, there was like another Ferrari out front, and she was like, "See, I don't have space for that one." And then the daily drivers in the other. And I said, "All right, well, I need to build a house with 8-car garage." And then I took it one step further. We're going to make it a show garage. We put a glass wall with a club room. And ironically, the buyer is a huge car buff, and loved that feature. And, ended up spending $15 million. And I think that was one of the key features of the home that he wanted.
It was absolutely gorgeous house. You can see the progress on Mike's Instagram, but I know exactly what he's talking about because I just would watch as things would happen. And I'm like, God, whoever gets this house, this is just absolutely gorgeous. Obviously on the water too.
Yep.
So you sell luxury homes, but you also have this deal with builders where you guys find property and then you just build stuff from the ground up. Is that kind of where things are headed with you?
Well, the market is heading that way, right? The buyers want new. The buyers want the wide open water view, and they're willing to pay for it. So that's really where the market's leading me to it. If that buyer wasn't there and we were doing distress sales and foreclosures, I'm an expert at that. I did that, in the early part of my career. I would do whatever it takes to get a deal done, but that market is on still moving and still going, and I've found a passion for it. I really love taking the feedback I get from clients and translating it into the next house. But yeah, it's we've got I think 4 or 5 projects going on, maybe 6. I got a secret one on Jupiter Island I don't talk too much about. Can't tell you the location, but it's going to be monstrous.
Nice.
We're talking
Mo-
$50 million
Jesus
project.
Christ. Good for you.
Yeah.
One of the other things that you kind of is your niche is how long did you start driving boats? Since you were a kid, right?
Oh, a kid.
At
My
Lake
dad.
Osborne?
Yeah, we grew up in Lake Clark Shores,
Lake
right
Clark,
down
I mean.
right down the street. We had a little 18-foot bow rider. I got the keys at 12 years old. I felt like I was like in heaven, right? Fishing, and I can get to any location around Lake Clark Shores, whether it be the Wendy's, the gas station, Video Extron. Remember that place?
No.
Oh, it was a video place on 10th Avenue. I can get there anywhere in town by boat for everything that I needed. So we grew up on the boat every day of the summer, skiing, fishing, doing a lot. So that's kind of where my passion for boating came in, and kind of doing the same with my kids.
Yeah, all the canals in Jupiter, so you know what the potential homeowners
Oh yeah.
can buy as far as size boat,
Yep.
dock, depth of the water. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's only really a Jupiter thing there.
Yeah, it's everywhere. I mean, I get phone calls. Honestly, I get realtors that call me. And they're like, "Hey, I got a client with 80-foot boat. Where can I put them?" And I'm like, "You got 2 options, bud. You got here and here." And you have to. Listen again. If you're going to be the expert, you have to know these things.
Yep.
I'll be at a showing, and the guy was like, "I got a 100-foot yacht," and I'm like, "What are we doing here?" And I look over the realtor, and they're like, "Sorry," and I'm like, "This isn't going to work."
What problems?
Yeah. So, it's you got to know the waterway, and luckily I'm a big boater, so I do know the waterway and the ins and outs of where boats can go and not go.
You work under Illustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Did I see you won? You're like one of the top in the company now.
Yeah, always number 2 or 3. Always number 2 or 3.
I know what you're shooting for.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to remind myself, the guy that's always number 1, he's a good buddy of mine, nice guy, but he's been in the business like twice as long. So my assistant, she's always keeping that perspective, but I'm such a stubborn, hard-headed guy.
Yeah, competitiveness has you
just
forgetting those types of things.
I mean, we're chomping at the bits, and I've been in the business for I think 16 years now. He's been in for 30 plus. It's no excuse to me. Like, we got to get there. So
Yeah. Well, it's an amazing feat to be that high up in the company and doing it consistently and climbing the ladder each time. What's the most expensive home? This $15 million one?
Yeah, wow. Last week.
And then what's your most amount of sales annually?
This past year we did 100 million even.
Nice.
We did 100 million even on December 30th closing. And the closing was supposed to be in January, and they bumped it up, and it put me right at the $100 million mark. My best year, and it's something that I've always wanted to. Like, I always have 2 goals: one that's crazy, and one that's kind of attainable. And the 100 million was always something that was attainable. It was like a milestone that I wanted to hit. But my crazy is, I mean, it used to be 250, now it's 350. So I always say, whenever I put through these crazy goals out there, if you get to half of it, you're high-fiving.
You're still winning.
Right.
That's cool. Geez. So you said 17 people on your real estate team?
Yeah, 17 people in the office. A lot of them have been with me since the day we opened. I was talking to one of them this morning. She was working on a deal, and I opened that office in 2016, and she's been with me since 2016. Another agent that she comes in pretty regularly. She's been with me since 2016.
Do you have any plans to expand into other counties, other states, or you're just gonna
No,
dominate here in the
there's
North End?
there's enough business in the North End. I would say if I ever wanted to expand in any direction, it would be just a couple miles south and east. um, Palm Beach Island. I mean, things are wild over there. You could have $100 million sale. You have $150 million sale, and it's doable. It's attainable. I'm meeting those clients. I know those people. It's just I'm not the Palm Beach guy, so they're going to call the Palm Beach guy.
Right.
So, we do have Jupiter Island. So, and that's my market.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would like to probably I would say at some point in the near future there'll be some sort of significant sale in that area of Jupiter Island. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
And I always you just gotta believe, right? It's gonna happen.
Put it out there.
Put it out there, and you just gotta keep networking, keep grinding, keep marketing, keep pushing. And we a lot of these sales that we do, it's kind of like that Jupiter Island thing is, we'll do a sale and no one will even know, right? I'll have seller and buyer. I had a client last year. I can't tell you who he was or what he bought, but he was like, "Do you mind not putting it on the MLS and disclosing it?" No problem. That was a $10 million deal. I double ended. The next month, we did another $10 million deal, and the buyer said, "Hey, man, I really don't want the public to know about this." No problem. I think it stayed off market. No one knew about it. Double ended that deal, another $10 million.
What's the reasoning for them not wanting
privacy? So the one guy, he goes, "Mike, I'm going to be on CNBC if this is a public sale, and the company is going to get scrutinized because I bought a $10 million home." He goes, "I have the means, I afford it, I work hard. I don't want the publicity
backlash." Yeah.
So that's a private sale. Super nice guy. I talk to him all the time, but
makes it easy for you too. You don't have to do as much of the marketing.
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah. It was a new construction home, so we had it. Went through that whole process, but the guy wanted it ultra private, so we didn't do any sales marketing. We didn't do anything for it, and respect his privacy.
Any we're going to be wrapping up here. Any thoughts about a lot of these kind of New York firms coming down here and trying to take a piece of this luxury stuff? I don't know much about the business, but I feel like I'm seeing more on social media. These guys, some of them that are coming down and trying to
they're
over.
They're trying. They're having success. I had a showing last week. I don't know how many realtors there were, but there had to have been 5. 2 from locally, 2 from New York, and I think there was an assistant. It was hard to tell who's who. I finally figured out who the buyer was just from memory, because believe it, I kept saying it's the same people. I showed this guy a year prior a home that he didn't get. Someone like kind of beat him to the punch. I sold this house in like 48 hours for $10.5 million. Jupiter Riverfront's kind of got a threshold. It's $10.5 million. So we sold this house for $10.5 million, and the showing the following day, and I started remembering, I'm like, it was that guy, right? He had moved to Delray, and he had realized from New York, that Delray might not be his spot. So he was moving north. And this is what's kind of keeping that market going. They don't really know, but they're getting out of the north, right? They have an accountant that's saying, "Get the hell out, please." Right. And they have, whatever is going on in their neighborhoods, maybe it's not as safe. They're just panic buying, and then they're relocating. So
once they get comfortable,
right. And I realized too, the client was midway through the showing. I was like, "Oh, it's this guy. I showed him the house last year. I know who he is," and I knew right then and there that he was capable of buying the home. It was $15 million beachfront home, Jupiter Island. And I was like, "All right, this guy's got the juice. He's he's down here now," but that's kind of what's happening with the market with these guys bouncing around.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
because they're coming from north, they don't know what they're getting.
Going back to these New York brokers are jumping on planes, they're coming down here, they're facilitating their clients. If they're not licensed here, they're getting someone in their agency or in their network of real estate companies to help them.
What separates you from them? They come down with the money. They do have experience, but it's up there.
Right.
I assume the connections you have, and then being
they're relying
from Palm Beach County
on guys like us. right? They're calling us, and I've gotten some phone calls like that from out of town. Like, hey, I need you. Not that like, hey, I want to give you this gift. They're like, I need you. I got
Right.
this great client I've done, 6 transactions with, and I need someone who really knows their stuff. So you're helping them out. They're helping you out. Um, you know, some of these New York companies that came down, they had a big presence. They're not doing as well all of a sudden. These real estate companies go through ups
Yeah.
and ups, and we have a new one in town that's doing really well. Um, I'll say the name. Douglas Elliman was doing really well, and now it seems like they're not doing as well. And Compass came in strong, and now who knows what they're doing. I mean, like I said, the brokerage model, it's a flawed model. It's very, very, very difficult to make any money. I can probably promise you that most are not making money.
Right.
So they can come down, they can take a piece of the pie, but they didn't really
What
accomplish
pie are they
anything. Yeah,
taking?
right. They didn't accomplish much.
Anything you regret in your career, mistake you made, something that maybe delayed you from getting to where you wanted to be sooner?
I don't think so. I don't really have too many regrets. I try not to have any regrets in life. I mean, everyone's always going to have something that they wish they did something a little bit different. But when it comes to real estate, I don't have too many regrets. Um, Sometimes I wish when things were so chaotic in 21, 22, we were doing a lot of real estate, a lot of volume and transactions. I'm like, could I have done a couple more? And the answer is yes. But, at what, I gotta tell you, there were times I thought I was going to drop dead of a heart attack. We were working so hard. So, could I have handled that differently to do more transactions potentially? But was it maybe worth it? Probably not. Um, I don't have anything that really stands out. Was like, oh, I really missed that opportunity, or I handled that wrong. Um, nothing too crazy.
One of the final questions. The name of my podcast here is called The Driven Agenda, and it's just basically talking to people who have that drive. They're doing things out of the ordinary. Where do you find your drive from?
My why and my drive are my kids. I mean, it's super simple. As you've known me for a long time, and when I was the paintball field owner, just kind of coasted. Things were good. Showed up in board shorts and t-shirts, and life was, fixing paintball guns. Life was good. And Lily was born, and I was like, oh boy, we have got to we've got to take care of another human, right? This girl's going to rely on me, and she stole my heart from birth, and I promised her I'd never let her down, and I work my ass off to provide for them. And that's really my why. I mean, and I don't care what anyone says when they're like, "Oh, diapers are expensive." You got no idea, brother.
Yeah.
I
That
mean,
and sleep
oh yeah,
in the
sleep.
beginning.
I mean,
Sleep's more valuable than money.
yeah. So really, my push and my why. I was actually talking to a buddy coming down here, and he's like, he goes, "I'm gonna chill out where I'm at," and I'm like, you got to push yourself. Buy the more expensive house, push yourself to do more. So I do that a little bit within reason. But I also, I mean, these kids are expensive, and you don't ever want to let them down. So I push myself to provide for them.
One last question that had me thinking when you were talking about working and hustling. Have you found that you're working more hours now that you become more successful, or are you able to work less hours and have a team that helps out?
So the 17 agents that work for me I'm merely a mentor to them. So they don't handle my business. If there's something I don't want to do, they'll do it for me. I would say I've learned somehow to work less hours. And again, that goes with the quality of real estate over the quantity. And the market, and listen, the consumers have helped me out with that a little bit. I don't get as many phone calls, so they're probably like, "Oh, I don't want to embarrass myself calling Mike on a smaller deal." Which, by the way, I will do. It's no big deal. If you're one of my best friends had me do a rental for him for $4,000 a month off Forest Hill Boulevard this year.
Right.
And he was like, "Do you want to do it?" I can't tell him no. I don't even know how many transactions I've done with him. Why would I ever tell him no?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's still to this day, any kind of real estate that gets thrown my way. But I find myself having to mentally and physically work less. these kids take up so much of my time
Yeah.
with sports that it actually is as work has slowed down a little bit, and their lives have picked up. So it's still the same amount of work.
Yeah.
Driving around all these soccer fields, volleyball, it's nonstop. But I will say the quality of real estate will help you do real estate in the 9 to 5 range, Monday through Friday. Most of these people are wealthy and they can take time off work because they're the boss. They own the company. They're the CEO. It's the clients that are, the salary employee. They can't take time off. They're the ones that at 5 o'clock showing, 6 o'clock showing, Saturdays and Sundays. Those are the tough clients, and typically for a cheaper transaction.
Yep.
And that's one of the things I always try to preach to the new agents. And I'm like, you don't want to work nights and weekends? Sell higher end homes. And it doesn't come like that, but it'll come around.
Yeah.
Put your time in, put your dues. It's a staying power
Meet
business.
the right people.
Yeah. And now I've actually, part of my job is networking with the right people. And again, that's part of living like them.
Right.
Right. You might need to go to that restaurant. You might need to be a member of that club. You might need to live in that neighborhood. I don't sell in gated country club communities. I promise you that there is a housewife or a resident that's behind the gates that lives there that's dominating that neighborhood. I don't need to spend marketing dollars chasing that.
Right.
I'm never going to win that battle. Until I want to pony up and live in that gated community, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So why waste the dollars? There's plenty of high-end real estate outside of the gated country club community. So that's one thing I always try to tell new agents. Don't chase the gated, glitzy, and glamour real estate. There's plenty of it outside the gates.
Interesting. So if people want to reach out to you, want to hire you, want to ask you questions, how do they find you?
Website, MikeIvancevic.com. My cell phone, 561-202-7102. That's it. Find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Enjoying YouTube a little bit. That's a struggle, so I enjoy it. It's kind of kicking my butt, so I want it more.
As far as trying to gain followers?
Yeah, I think followers and traction
all
and
of that
views.
shit is hard, man. I've been trying for a while. I mean,
YouTube is so hard. That's actually what keeps me more engaged to it.
Right.
It's hard.
That's how I am with X. No one I know is really on X, but I'm trying to gain my followers, even though I don't have any friends.
I'm like a ghost on X. They don't even know I exist. I
get all my news and crypto stuff on there.
I'll post something on X and it'll get like 10 views. I'll post something on Instagram and get like 5,000 views. I'm like, all right, like, test your socials and what's working. Keep going.
Yeah,
and that's great advice. Is
what's your best one? Instagram.
Yeah. And if something works, like, don't fight it.
Right, just stick with
it. Do it more. Double down on it. Some people are great at YouTube. Great. Double down on that.
Yep.
Instagram seems to work with me. And I have 2 Instagram accounts. One works sometimes and one works another time. They work. It's every 6 months, something different.
Yeah. You just never know.
It's hard to keep up with, but it's all
paying off. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for your time. It's always good to see you. It's been a little while, but, I hope everyone finds something interesting out of it. I know I've learned a lot. And if you guys have any questions for Mike, then you know how to find him.
Thanks, guys.